to get started again for the last session of the day. It's my pleasure to introduce Renier Mendoza from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. And today he's going to tell us about image reconstruction in electrical impedance tomography using deep neural networks.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you for coming. I know it's a long conference. It's already like one of the last lectures. I'm glad that my lecture is after the coffee break. I know this time is a bit on the sleepy side of the day. First, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me, especially Professor Matsu from Kanazawa University for the invitation. It's my pleasure. It's my first time in Kyoto University. It's a very nice campus. Very nice to listen to the presentation as well. I learned a lot from the past lectures. So allow me to introduce our topic on inverse problem with electrical impedance tomography using machine learning and differential evolution. Okay. So this joint work with my PhD student Margaret Cruz and my colleague Dr. Rodina Mohammed. So this is the outline of my presentation. First, I give a short introduction on what is electrical impedance tomography for those who doesn't know about the problem, and then I will present the deep learning approach that we're going to use to solve. So essentially, electrical impedance tomography is an elliptic PDE. We're going to use deep learning to solve the PDE, and then we're going to use the trained neural network to solve the inverse problem arising from the EID. And also further go to physics-informed neural operator for the problem. Okay, so first we go to electrical impedance tomography. So electrical impedance tomography is a non-invasive imaging technique. So it's like a CT scan. So, but instead of magnetic rays, radiation, what you do is here. This is the body. What you do is you insert current at the electrodes. So these are your electrodes at the boundary. You insert current, and then based on the boundary voltage measurement, the goal is to recover this image blue. So it's a quite difficult problem because you're only given boundary data and you wish to recover the whole image. You know, with X-ray, for example, if you pass through an X-ray here, it goes straight to the other side. But with electricity, when you pass a current here, it disperses throughout the body. It doesn't go straight from one end to the other end. So that's why the resulting equation is a differential equation. It looks like this. So given domain omega bounded and connected with a sufficiently smooth boundary, suppose that the electrical conductivity sigma, so here is actually the image. So earlier, so if we go back, that's this one, the blue one, the sigma. So the goal is given the image, the EIT problem, the electrical potential P, or the boundary voltage, if you look at the restriction of E at the boundary, that's the boundary voltage, satisfies this generalized Laplacian equation. So from here, so given sigma, the conductivity, this is the image that you want to reconstruct. Given a sigma, you can solve the partial differential equation and then restrict it at the boundary. So the fourth problem is simply, given an image, you get the boundary voltage. So this one is quite straightforward because you have partial differential equation. It's very well posed. You can easily solve this using a finite element method. Okay, you can show the solution. So that the mapping from sigma to the boundary voltage P is quite easy. However, the inverse problem is quite difficult because what you're going to do is given some boundary measurement of phi, so essentially the value of phi at the boundary, you're given this information. Can you reconstruct the whole coefficient sigma at the whole domain? Okay, so that is why the inverse problem is severely ill-posed because you know, it's when you insert current at the boundary, it doesn't go straight, it dissipates. And so that makes the problem more difficult. So, in order to do this, we have to do some assumptions. And one of the assumptions that we can use is that if we apply this in medical image reconstruction of the body, one can show that the conductivity of healthy tissues show great contrast. For example, if you look at the conductivity of lung, it's around 1, and the blood is around 6.7. So in a way, in a domain omega, those that are closest to 6.7, you can say that they're classified as blood, and those close to 1 is classified as lung. So, because of this, we can assume that sigma is a piecewise constant. So here, sigma sub m is the corresponding conductivity constant value at domain omega sub m. So in our example, you can think of this omega sub m as like the sub-regions within your omega. So you can think of this as the heart, the lungs, like the region inside your omega. Okay? So with this, you can only have, we can make our sigma to be finite dimensional in that sense, because we can only, our goal is now to reconstruct the values of sigma 1 up to chi sub m minus 1. Okay? So for example, we have this. So here you can think of this as your omega sub 1, omega sub 2, omega sub 3, omega sub 4. Okay? Then you can determine the values of your conductivity here, 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 and here. Okay? So this, for example, in this problem, if you solve this using free frame, the solution looks like this. Okay? For the forward problem. Okay? Now for the inverse problem, what we're going to do is instead of finding sigma, because sigma is in L infinity, with the piecewise constant assumption, we're able to make it into finite dimensional problem. We're just looking for this value sigma sub 1 up to sigma sub m minus 1 and chi sub 1 up to chi sub m minus 1. So chi sub 1 is our characteristic functions which represent the geometry of the inclusion. So here, what we're going to assume is, for example, our application in mind is on tumor detection. So the inclusions, because for example, you have a domain, what you want to do is to determine the tumor location. So we're going to assume that the inclusion is elliptical in shape, because in general, we can assume that tumors grow in an elliptical fashion. So here, we can represent chi sub I as elliptical inclusions. And so, for example, if you have elliptical inclusions, chi sub 1, for example, you can think of it as can be represented by the center, the radius, the angle of rotation. Later, I will show some more details about how you represent chi sub I in finite dimensional settings. So here, center, radius, and the angle. So again, so for the forward problem, it looks like this. You're just given a PDE. You given sigma, you solve for phi. You're sitting at the boundary, you can use a free fem. So what we do is we can use a finite element method. So get the version of formulation. One can show that the solution exists. Very straightforward. Then for the inverse problem, usually what you do is an optimization. So for example, this is a standard algorithm. You have an initial guess sigma sub 0. And then what we're going to do is you update. So for example, sigma sub 0, you have an updating mechanism here. What we're going to do is after you update using some, for example, C plus descent, you're going to check the solution. So after here, you update and then check the solution. Then check if at the boundary it matches the data. And then you go iteratively. Okay? So the big problem here is that, as you can see, if you look here, you have to solve the PDE multiple times. And because the problem is ill-posed, it's very flat, you cannot use a simple gradient descent method. So in this kind of work, global optimization techniques have been used to handle the ill-posedness of the problem. But with global optimization techniques, what happens is you don't have an initial guess, you have initial guesses. Meaning, for global optimization techniques, you have multiple solutions. So for example, the population size is 100. So what you do is you have 100 guesses, then you update this 100 guesses every iterations. But every time you do the update, what happens is you have to solve this hundreds of times. So if you're going to solve the PDE hundreds of times, thousands of times, it's going to take a lot of time. Even though you're using a very fast solver, it's still very computationally expensive. So to do that, to circumvent this very computationally expensive solving of the inverse problem, what we're going to do is instead of using FreeFEM, we're going to use deep learning. So what we're going to do is we will create a neural network that solves the PDE so that every time that we have to update this, we can just use the trained neural network so the computation is much faster. In the literature, deep learning has been used for EIT. However, the problem is with the deep learning approaches available in the literature, they're given a fixed sigma. You have to train a neural network to solve for phi. That's a problem because if you're going to do another initial guess here, you have to train multiple times. Meaning with the usual framework, every time that you have to update your solution, you have to train the model. That takes a long time because training a neural network takes a long time. So what we did is instead of using the usual framework wherein for the deep neural network wherein you map x to phi of x, what we did is we just map the parameter space to the solution space. Okay. So now, we're going to present the deep learning framework for the forward problem. So essentially, it's like this. We sampled thousands of combinations of the parameter space, and then we solve it using FreeFEM, finite element method, and then that's what we use for the training of the neural network in order to get the output of the neural network. So essentially, we have many combinations of sigma to get the solution phi. Okay? I think we use 150,000 samples. So for the testing of our results, we have 4 configurations. So this one is the fixed geometry, meaning these are not moving. So this is helpful for just monitoring. You're not concerned about the location because you know in a healthy tissue the lungs are not moving and they're fixed. So you just want to check if the conductivity are changing. So the good thing about EIT is that it's very cheap. You can use it for monitoring, meaning the person can have the apparatus attached to its body 24/7. Okay, so in that case, you don't need to get the geometry, just the value inside the inclusions. And then for the 2, 3, 4, these are for tumor detection. So it looks like this. So what we're going to do is a finite dimensional optimization problem. So here you just want to solve for the conductivity sigma 1 and sigma sub 2. You have the same values for sigma 1 because they are the same value at the lungs and then it's the heart. These are for the tumors. So we assume that you have 1, 2 tumors. The first one is a circular, the second one is elliptical, and then the third tumor detection case is you have 2 inclusions. Okay. So these are the range of parameters. And for the neural network, so we use the standard FNN for the search, for the training, and just to compare, we also use CNN. So we use FNN and CNN to check which one works. So for example, for the case 1, this is the solution using finite element method. This one is the solution using feed-forward neural network, and this one is solution using CNN. As you can see, you get quite good result for the first problem, also for the second problem. It's not completely the same, especially if you look at the interface, but the area is quite small, relative area is small, because the values is around 20 and this is 0.1 to 0.7. So we also do this for the third case and also the fourth case. So now that we've established, you can use a neural network to train the forward model. Now we can go to the inverse problem. So for this particular problem, we use differential evolution. So why differential evolution? differential evolution is a population-based, so it's a global optimization technique. It's simple to implement. It can solve complex optimization problems. It's simple and it's very effective. It has many variants available in the internet, in the literature. So you have the standard differential evolution. You have the self-adaptive control for SAVE, so self-adaptive DE. There's also another variant which is JADE, SHADE, and then SAP-DE. Okay? So the idea between the difference is that here, because within the algorithm it has hyperparameters. So with the as you go from here to here, the hyperparameters within the algorithm are adaptive. So for example, if you look at SHADE, what happens is so you initialize a population, and then here, from the initial population, this is how you update the solution. Okay, so it uses the current best solution and the other solutions from the population. You do this sort of linear combination and check if there's an improvement. Okay, so you have this kind of crossover. You retain the best individual based on the fitness, meaning those solutions that will give a lesser function value will be retained. And here, the hyperparameter f sub g and CRG changes over the generation. Because the standard differential evolution, they are constant. Okay? So they are computed based on historical memory archive, which store a set of CR and F values. Furthermore, it's not shown here, but the population size is also decreasing. Meaning, because with these kind of algorithms, towards the end of the algorithm, you expect that the solutions don't change anymore. So you do a linear reduction in the population size to save computational time. Okay. So the good thing about SHADE is that it can obtain global convergence. However, it's population-based and can be computationally expensive. So it requires repeated numerical computation of the PDE. So this is our main motivation. Can you replace the usual solver with a deep learning model so that instead of solving the PDE using FreeFEM, you can use a neural network? Okay, so this is the flow chart of the differential evolution. So the only difference is that here, instead of using the PDE, what you use is the pre-trained neural network model. So you can replace this with FNN or CNN. So the good thing about this framework is that you can also use this for other models. It's not just for EIT. For example, if you have a PDE that is parameter dependent, you can train your neural network for the parameter dependent PDE and use this frame. So just replace this with a PDE solver using neural network. Okay. So these are the solution for the case 2. So here, as you can see, so we compared it with also GA. So GA is the other standard global algorithm, genetic algorithm. There's also the swarm optimization and surrogate optimization compared with different versions of differential evolution. So there's an overlap because we wanted to check if the solutions can be repeatable. So with the simplest case, DE, JADE, SAVE, and SHADE, they did quite well. So this one did not do well. The surrogate optimization also was not successful. Then for the elliptical inclusion, so by the way here, the red one is the true solution, the blue one is the best solution, and the other ones are the other solutions. So we want something that looks like. So here, SHADE, SAVE, we're able to do well. So the good variants of differential evolution. Again, the surrogate optimization, GA was not very good. Standard DE was not very good. So it shows that if your hyperparameter for differential evolution is adaptive, then you get a better solution. PSO, particle swarm optimization, also did not fare well. Here, okay. Of course, as the complexity of the problem increases, it becomes more difficult for other algorithms. As you can see, with SHADE, with the best solution, the blue one is quite good with SAVE, but with the standard DE, did did not fare well with also with GA. BSO actually, although the best solution is quite fit well, but the other solutions, they almost cover the whole space, especially store rate optimization. So just to show how it works, so these are the average intersection over union, just to show which one has the best performance. And so we have to look here. So the closest value to 1 is the better. So here, all the variants of the DE, say, J, shade, did quite well, especially shade, as you can see. For all the configurations, it was able to perform well. So for the rest of the presentation, I'm going to focus more on shade. Okay. So here we have the just the other metrics, and just to show you how shade the best solution of shade compared with the ground truth. So here, as you can see, the values are quite close to each other for the FN and shade. So we were able to reconstruct well, and we wanted to show as well how it compares. So you have the usual feed-forward neural network, the CNN, and the finite element method. Okay. So as you can see, well, this one is quite good. The conductivity values is not as close, but the geometrical reconstruction is quite good. Yeah, for the elliptical inclusion, you can see, for the geometry is quite good actually, as you can see. So meaning, if you're going to use this for detecting tumor location, you can see that the shape location is quite good, except for the conductivity value, wherein it's not completely the same, but quite similar. Okay. So the important part is this one, the significant speed up. I just want to emphasize that I started working with EIP since I was long time ago, 2007, and that time I was coding my own finite element method. We didn't have FreeFEM that time, so I had to code everything from that time Scilab. And then I remember just solving the PDE takes a long time because you have to solve a linear system. So like running one iteration, for example, of GA took me several hours. So I left my code there in the lab for several days just to get 20 independent runs. But now it's quite very fast. I mean, when we learned about FreeFEM, the time was improved significantly. I mean, for the whole inverse problem, you only need 1,346 seconds. This was already quite fast for me. But for an application in medicine, if you want the images to come back quicker, you want faster. And as you can see, with feed-forward neural network, from 1,346 seconds, the whole inverse problem iteration for all the population took only 8 seconds. So that's how fast it is. Because with the neural network, essentially you're just solving polynomial evaluation. The hard part is the training part. But once you have the training model, it's quite fast. Of course, CNN is longer than FNN because you have to do convolution along for the forward propagation. But once you have the trained model, the FNN shape, the neural network, is quite fast. Okay? Even for configuration for it only took 38 seconds for the whole inverse problem iteration. That's why I think this is the main contribution. So if you're going to if you have a solver, you have to use PDE multiple times. You can train a model. However, I have to emphasize that they are fast once trained, but the training process itself is computationally expensive. So to give you an idea, for us to be able to get this, we had to solve the FreeFEM 150,000 times just to get that many combinations of parameter, that many solutions of PDE to train the model. But 150,000 times is also computationally expensive if you want to train. So once you have once you have the data, then you have to train it, That also takes a lot of time. That is why it is better if we're going to use a smaller set of data. This was also discussed yesterday, so I think it was also the same image was used. But essentially, if you're going to use small data, you have to incorporate a lot of physics. Okay, so in this, as an extension, what we did is that because if we don't want to take a lot of time in the training part, maybe we can just use a smaller set of data for our training. So with this, I think this has been presented several times, the physics informed. So here, we're going to use physics informed real operator, because with physics informed real network, that means it's just a usual solver from x to phi of x. But here, since we're solving for the mapping from the parameter space to the solution space, that's where we're going to approximate the operator. So essentially, you have the data, you have the equation, you use the generalized Laplacian equation, you have the Neumann boundary condition, and this is the conservation of voltage. Okay, so you have to have these loss functions, and we minimize this, and able to get the following. So, as you can see, with only 100, so we're essentially here with 100 samples, 1,000 samples, 10,000, compared to 150,000. Compared to 150,000, notice that you can, before, this thing, you can see the edges are not prominent here. But here, even with just with the 100 samples, you can already see some the interface. And CNN, it's quite different. Here you're gonna see the interface. So, and up to 10,000 samples, as you can see, we get quite good reconstruction. So that's the advantage with physics informed real operators, that even with very few sample data, you get quite good reconstruction, because you're also minimizing the differential equation, not just your data. Okay, and so I mean our results before were quite good, but we're using more than 100,000 of samples. So FNN and CNN work quite well if you have a lot of samples, and if you only have few samples, so faster training, you can use Pino. And here, if we're going to use only 10, so small data set, notice how Pino can reconstruct the image as well, just using the small amount of data. So I think this is one of the selling points of using physics informed real operator. But of course, if you have more data, I still recommend FNN shade and CNN shade, because the forward solution is also faster. Okay. I think that's it for my presentation. So I'd like to introduce myself. So I'm from the Philippines. I think I'm the only speaker from the Philippines. So I'd like to take this opportunity because to invite everyone, because in the Philippines, not so many people are working in this kind of field. For us, machine learning, data science is very new. So that's why our group organizes this kind of event, so that instead of the Filipinos coming here because they need visa and all, very expensive, I'd like you to come to the Philippines. So we're organizing international conference of COMFOSNAS. This is co-organized with Kanazawa University, and it's happening in June 20 to 23 in the beautiful city of Cebu. We have beach. There are many direct flights from Japan or anywhere to Cebu, and just scan this and be happy to welcome you, because we like to expose the Filipino scientists to cutting-edge research in AI and machine learning. The problem is the conferences outside the Philippines are quite expensive. We need visa to go to everywhere. So that's why the best choice is to invite you. So I hope for you to register. I'll be happy to show you around to see you. Thank you very much.
We have time for one very short question, either about the talk or about this wonderful international conference. One quick question. Yeah, I had a quick one. Does all of this apply to more general functional coefficients, or do you always have to parameterize them in some way?
Yeah, I mean, for this one, I think it has to be parameterized in some way. Because if you're going to use your input is not parameterized, then you have to use a different neural network. For example, it was presented, I think, more like infinite dimensional neural network wherein you have like the input is function, output is function. So I think you have to use a different neural network. Okay. So it has, for this one to work, I think it has to be parameterized. Thank you.
Thank you. Sebastian, right here.